the channel. It's Billy again, bringing you another Awaken Chaos Era video. We are in part 2 of our faction series, looking at the Crisas faction. We're going to take a look at the heroes, look at their skills, see how we can utilize them in the game. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we are now going to be looking at the Crisas faction today. So if we look at our index in Crisas, this is very unique. This one only has 3 different tiers of heroes. You've got common, epic, and legendary. Of these commons, I can tell you these two guys right here are the only ones that have any skills that are any decent. This one deals 100% damage to an enemy and applies speed up and attack up to the caster and all allies for 1 turn. Those are the only 2 that are really decent. One's fire, one's woods. Apart from that, these heroes here really are just food. We're going to be mainly talking about these units in here, so let's go ahead and get started with Crazed Herzog. So if you look at Crazed Herzog, he does have the highest defense out of all of the heroes in this faction. If we look at his trait here, if the caster inflicts 3 attacks or abilities against the same target, then the caster deals bonus damage equal to 5% of the target's current max health. And then if it's ascended, it also grants immunity for 2 turns. So essentially, the more he does, the more damage he does. The downside is it is based on current max health. So if he's in a boss, which is where he'll be fantastic at, over time that damage will go further down. So looking at his first skill, deals 70% damage to an enemy target plus 5% bonus damage, multiplied by the number of times this character has used this ability. This bonus may reach a maximum of 25%. So we can get this up to 100% damage, an additional 25% on top of that. So the more that you use this, just like the more that you're going to use this, I wouldn't say double damage, but significantly more damage. He does have a high attack, but it's not the highest in the faction. If we look at his special, 70% damage to all enemies, gets up to 100, and it grants the caster 5% damage mitigation per target struck by this attack for 2 turns. So essentially he's going to attack the entire team and then receive 5% less damage for 2 turns from all the enemies. And if we look at his last skill, his ultimate here, the caster descends into an enraged berserk mode state, dealing 140% damage to an enemy, maxes out at 200% damage. So one, we see this is an undispellable, so it cannot be removed. The way this is worded is it's a little questionable on how exactly it works. So the caster launches an immediate bonus attack. So he hits once and then a bonus attack. With an 80%/60% chance of triggering further bonus attacks after casting any ability for the next 2 turns. So it could be that he does 1 attack, 80% chance to bonus attack, and then 60% chance to bonus attack after that. Or if it's just automatic bonus attack, 80% chance for the next attack, and then 60% chance for every attack after that. I don't have 100% clarification on that, but just know that he is going to hit additionally. Secondly, we don't know if his bonus attacks are the actual attacks you're using, or are they all A1 attacks, or are they all ultimate attacks. Not entirely sure on that either. So he does have a lot of potential for damage output. I would say he would be a single target nuker if you wanted to use him arena or something like that. Or he would definitely be a hard-hitting damage dealer when you're in dungeons. Goobag here has the highest attack at 1387. I don't like him because he just kicked his little dude here. Not very cool. So this guy increases damage over speed. So every 130 speed points over 100 grants 1 bonus chance to attack. And then every 100 speed points over 100 grants bonus chance to attack the caster. So if you've got 230 is your speed number, he has a chance to go again. If you're at 200 speed when it's ascended, or let's say you get like 300 speed, so you're going to want to put a bunch of speed gear on him, as many speed stats as possible. But if you look at his A1 here, he deals 40% damage, and I'm thinking, man, this is only 50% damage. That's not very good. But increases the speed by +10. So normally when you have an attack like this that adds something, there's a limit, you know, an additional capped out at 25%, capped out at 50%. This there is no limit. So if you keep him alive long enough and he continues to hit, he's going to stack more speed, which is going to allow him to go more often, and he's going to hit harder. Looking at his special, deals 100% damage to an enemy, applies 2 layers of poison, so he puts 2 poisons on, 3 turns each. The one downside about poison in this game is the poison is based on the current health, not max health, or total max health. Then looking at his ultimate, it inflicts a total of 150% damage, adding an additional 50, so it gives you 200 to all enemies randomly. Damage increases according to your speed. So again, we've got more damage done by speed. So I have heard from people who have used him, who had a decent amount of speed. It wasn't 300 speed or anything like that. But they said it just didn't seem to hit very hard. So we don't necessarily know how that damage scales based on speed, or a chance to go again based on speed. But if you wanted to build him, you're going to want to build him out with as much speed as possible. Looking at Hector here, Hector's my first legendary. He hits really hard. He doesn't have any super substantial stats. I mean, he does hit hard and has some decent health, or his attack's pretty high, but not top of class anywhere. But if you look at this here, we get 25% more damage, or max damage, and then 50% max damage. So I think when you look at these here, this would push him to the highest attack in this category. But because of Crazed Herzog's skills and bonuses and whatnot, I don't think he won't hit quite as hard as Herzog will. So if you look at Explosive Arrow, the Explosive Arrow skill increases your attack. It doesn't necessarily specify how much, but if you have 2 axes, then you apply 2 Explosive Arrow to the caster and deals 70% damage to an enemy target. If the caster has 1 axe, then applies 1 Explosive Arrow to the caster and deals 70% damage to the target. If the caster has no axes, then deals 70% damage to the target. So if we look at his second skill here, this first skill will make more sense. Throws an axe that deals 70% damage to an enemy target and applies Sundering Strike for 2 turns, which is reduce defense and is not removable. This debuff may be stacked up to 2 times, and this ability may not be used without an axe. So we see that first skill makes a little more sense now if he has an axe or doesn't have an axe. So he can throw both of his axes and then not have any axes left to do the additional damage. And if we look at his last skill, he recalls all thrown axes and deals 160% damage, which that can scale up to 100, or 200, excuse me, and grants 1 bonus turn per axe thrown. So if you use that skill 2 back to back, you'll get those back. You'll get 2 more turns in a row that you can do. So then you can do like your A1 and then your A2, because you'll get your increased attack, and then you'll get your decreased defense, so you can go that route as well. And this scales up to 100. So he hits pretty hard. I would say he's definitely somebody worth focusing on for some of the bosses and stuff like that. He'd be good against a woods boss because of the fire elemental. Looking at Grindocks. Grindocks you do get at level 60 of the Magic Pass, I believe it's called. Yeah, Magic Pass. Nope, didn't want to do that. So far, in my opinion, best healer of the game. I have not come across anybody that heals better than him yet. So if we look at his trait here, damage against the unit with the team's highest attack rating cannot exceed 51% of their max health. And then if you look at the Ascended version, whichever other ally, so the caster and whichever other ally has the highest max rating cannot exceed 50%, 51%. So you can't basically get one shot with this Ascended if it's a when you have this based on your attack. For him, it's not based on his attack, but the other hero, it is based on the attack. If we look at his basic skill, deals 60% damage to an enemy target and grants a shield with strength equal to 5% of the ally's max health to whichever ally has the least health remaining for 1 turn. So whoever has the lowest amount of health will receive the shield, and then that shield can get an additional 5%. So you can get an additional 10% of the ally's max health. And then this goes up to 80% damage. So if we look at his special, it heals the caster or an ally by 10% of this character's max health. So you want to stack as much health on him as possible. This character casts this ability on any ally which is directly attacked. This ability may be cast once per turn. And then you've got 5% energy recovery on it. Or I guess it would be health recovery. And then if we look at the ultimate, heals the caster on all allies by 20% of this character's max health. Again, you want to stack as much health as possible. Grants heal for 3 turns. So heal basically restores the character's current HP at the end of the turn. So at the end of every turn, you get a little bit of a heal. So 20%, which this goes up to 30%. You can get that down to a 3-turn cooldown. And then you can get that to 23... I don't know what the 2% recovery is. That doesn't make sense. But heals everywhere. He's the second or third legendary I got. Definitely extremely helpful. There are not many healers in the game, but it's cool that he doesn't. I think he's the only that heals and does the heal over time as well. So if you look at Auroch, if we see here, we see Explosive Arrow, which we saw before on Hector. The difference is, I think this is supposed to be Berserk 1, and then this is Berserk 2. Because when I tested this, it gave me plus 30% crit rate and 30% crit damage. Where the Explosive Arrow on Hector did increased attack. So I think this is just a wording issue, and I have submitted this up to the devs to let them know. But we see he gets increased crit rate and crit damage at the start of the battle for 3 turns. Look at his A1. We get some more increase in the crit damage by 30%, and then deals 80% damage to the enemy, stacking up to 100. So if you've got either 30 or 50, and then you've got an additional 30, you've got 60 or 80 damage that additional crit damage that can be done here. If you look at his second skill, he deals 120% damage, which can go up to 150, and applies lifesteal for 2 turns. We see here that the lifesteal does 30%. Well, 30% of the damage dealt in each attack is converted into healing, and then we get enhance here. Not entirely sure what that enhance is, but you do get additional heals on that. And then looking at the ultimate, deals 140% damage to an enemy and applies silence to the target. Silence can only use the basic abilities. If this ability deals a critical hit, applies silence on all enemies for 1 turn. So definitely want to make sure you build him with as much crit as possible. He can definitely do some damage to a boss or be a single target nuker as well between these 3 skills here. Because if you can silence the entire enemy team in a arena battle, then that is definitely helpful. We look at Herzog. If we look at this, he increases his attack by 0.3% per 1% health lost. If it's ascended, it's 0.5% per 1% health lost. So if you have a set on him that heals him, he will still do that damage based on what has been lost. It doesn't only do based on what's been lost mitigated by that heal. So if you keep healing him, whether it be through other heroes in the game that are going to heal him or through gear that you can put on him to heal, he's going to do more damage with that. So definitely want to make sure you get either pair him up with a healer or pair him up with gear that heals for you. Looking at his A1, deals 70% damage to an enemy with a 30% chance of applying defense down for 3 turns. Not a huge fan of that 30%. It'd be nice if one of these did, maybe plus 20% on this to make it 50, but you can scale up to 100% damage. Deals 70% damage, scaled up to 100 again, to all enemies, which is fantastic whenever you have AoE, with a 50% chance of applying bleeding on the target for 3 turns. So you have an opportunity to put bleeding on everybody, and bleeding at the end of the turn deals damage according to the caster's attack. And if we look at his ultimate, deals 160% damage, which scales up to 200 to an enemy, plus bonus damage per unit of HP lost. So again, he's going to do even more damage on a 3-turn cooldown than what he would normally receive. So he gets additional damage here, gets additional damage here. He can hit really hard. The one downside is he's losing a couple hundred health opposed to legendary. But you stack a bunch of attack on him with some gear that heals him, he's going to do a lot of damage for you. Looking at Brusack, he has... No, he doesn't. I thought he had the highest defense, or highest crit rate, but he doesn't. When an ally with less than 50% health is attacked, you can take the damage instead, and this will trigger a maximum of 1 time per turn. And it's ascended, you get that 2 times per turn. So he can receive the damage that somebody else would be receiving if your ally has less than 50% health. We look at his A1, deals 80% damage to an enemy with a 50% chance. See, I like this right here. This is what I was talking about with the last one. He can get a 100% chance for a defense down here, and then that can scale to 100. So I think this is written better than it was on the last hero that we looked at. But this is a good skill here. Applies 70% chance to apply mocking on all enemies for 1 turn. Get that down to a 2-turn cooldown. Uncontrolled, automatically uses basic abilities to attack the caster. So I don't know if this is like where it's like a provoke almost, where all of them can only attack you, because silence is what only allows you to use your first. So I'm pretty sure that's what that is. And then we look at his last skill, attack all enemies for 120% damage, scales up to 150. Apply defense up to self and all allies for 2 turns. So that is a super helpful skill. You can get that down to a 2-turn cooldown, and then you can get that extended. So basically you'll keep defense up the entire time. Definitely be a good unit for Arena if he lands mocking to all enemies and he gives yourself defense up. Definitely a good hero worth investing in. Magnar, I was not really impressed with this hero here. I used it in a couple different areas of the game. Some of the skills sounds like they'd be pretty helpful, but it just didn't seem to pan out when I tested them. Grants the caster a 30% chance of casting this ability twice. If the caster is under 50% health, then the chance to double cast increases to 70. Grants the caster 30% chance of casting this ability twice. If the caster is under 50% health, then the chance to double increases to 70. If this ability's passive bonus fails to trigger, then the cooldown is reduced by 1 turn. So that would be somewhat beneficial if, like, let's say the third skill or the second skill does not double hit, then you reduce the cooldown by 1 turn, which is very helpful. Looking at the first skill, 50% damage to an enemy, goes up to 80, and applies defense down on the target for 3 turns. If the target is already affected by defense down, applies defense down 2 instead. If this was AoE, I would say absolutely, but it's a single target. If we look at this one here, heals the caster or an ally for 15% of their max health, and applies attack up to the target for 3 turns. That sounds amazing. However, again, it would be awesome if it were AoE versus either themselves or another. I mean, the benefit would be if you can build like an arena team, let's say, with this as a support to give additional attack up. That may be helpful if you're looking to target a specific unit, or, you know, this would be good for boss battles maybe. And then looking at the final skill, 120% damage to an enemy with a 50% chance of applying stun, which would not be good for a boss because you can't stun a boss. And then you get to grants a bonus attack with a 100% attack rating. So just not really impressed with the skills. In theory, they could be good if this was rewritten. Either of these as entire team, entire defense, that would be great. Um, because let's say we put a defense down and then it procs again to defense down 2. Well, I would rather have a defense down on 2 different enemies than a defense down 2 on 1 enemy. So potential there, but not quite. And then, as I said, the rest of these heroes that we have in this category are just common. So that is our Crisas faction today. If you enjoyed this content, I would appreciate you subscribing to the channel. If you hit that little notification bell, you'll be notified when I post videos. If you'd like, and if you'd want to comment, I would greatly appreciate it. I want to say thank you for hanging out, and have a nice day.